Okay, so I'm working on my 2005 Nissan Quest here today. We're going to be replacing the upstream O2 sensor. This is a sensor 1, bank 1. And bank 1 is going to be the actual sensor that's in between the firewall and the engine on this particular vehicle. This is a V6 3.5 liter. We did have to get a you're going to need an O2 tool. I just got this as a loaner tool from AutoZone, and it's got, I don't know how hard it's going to be to get to this exactly, but we've got a couple of attachments here. We've got this one, you'll notice the split, and this here is the same thing, but it has where you can mount your 3/8 ratchet, and it has another one here that you can do a 1/2 inch, and you're able to get in there and get a lot of different angles and stuff, so it makes it easier to get to. So depending on how hard it's going to be, we'll determine which one of those we need to use. Now here is the Bosch sensor, and this is the upstream sensor. These are very expensive. It's just short of $100 for one of these. These Japanese, these foreign O2 sensors, or a wideband sensor, they're very expensive. So on any of these foreign cars, you're going to pay a little more for those. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. First of all, I'm going to show you the code we have here. Okay, so if you have a scan tool and you've got your service engine light on, you can come over here to the driver's side, and we're going to go right underneath the steering column here. You'll see this little tray, and then you come on down, and right there, that little white piece, and we're going to just hook that just like so. Now we'll have to get the key and get our key on before we can get it to work in here without cranking it. So we'll just go ahead and get our key in here and turn it all the way to the on, and we'll check these codes out here. It'll take just a second. Okay, so it's just asking me if this information is correct, and then we'll just scan down. Got one of three. We got a 1273, and that's your O2, and it's sensor 1, bank 1, and it has been confirmed. And it'll have another one that says that it's pending. Now it's also throwing this, which this is new, but it probably has to do with the O2 sensor, because it throwed the O2 sensor a couple times, and I wanted to make sure before placing it because it's pretty expensive. So we know what we've got to do, so we're going to go ahead and just work on getting the sensor in at this point. Okay, so you might be asking yourself, why would you want to replace this O2 sensor? Well, right now this van is getting 13 miles per gallon. That's mainly city, but it should be getting around 19 or 20, and so it's getting really horrible gas mileage, and that's a good indicator. Now, even if you don't have a light, you may want to take it somewhere where they can maybe look and see if these O2 sensors are getting the proper voltage. But luckily it did throw the code, and it's been confirmed several times. So I went ahead first and disconnected the negative cable, and we're going to get started. We got to remove this cowl windshield wiper assembly. You can just pull these little caps off with your fingernail. Just get you something so you're not losing your parts. And so we're just going to get started here. The sensor location is going to be back in behind here, and as you can see, there's just no way, it's impossible at this point to even think about getting back there with anything. So we're going to go ahead and get this removed, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so we got us a 14 millimeter. We're just going to start breaking these loose. And it's a good idea to like put a mark. I'll always put like a mark with markers, so I put them exactly back where they were. And it's not a bad idea to label which one's which for drivers or passenger, just so you don't get confused when going back together. Now these have little splines on them, but you can just wiggle it right up and off of there. Just give it a little push down right there, and it'll usually just kind of wiggle its way right up and off. Okay, so this plastic part will have some various snaps. Some of these have been replaced and some are missing, and what I do is just give it a little push out from under here. Don't even bother removing them because it's so flimsy that it'll just pop right out from under them. And it looks like I've got just a little push pin right here I need to remove, and I can just pull that right off. Okay, so on mine's missing some of these, so I just give it a little tug in the middle and it just comes right out. Alright, now that we're in here, we're going to go ahead. This is 10 millimeters. We're going to remove these 3 right here. And we've got a connector right here. Push in with your fingernail. You may have to push in pretty hard. And I think I'm going to need my other hand. Oh, there it goes. And then this will come back through here like that. So let's go ahead and get those for the windshield wiper motor first. Okay, so we're just getting these 3 loose, and then we'll be able to get these out by hand here the rest of the way. And when you're putting all this stuff back together, you can do yourself a favor and use some WD-40. It'll make it go much smoother going back. Okay, so this is ready to come out. And this thing does locate itself with those 3 screws. So it's no worries putting it back. Okay, now we get in here, we're going to have a lot of these 10 millimeters. We got 1, 2, 3 right there. We've got one there. We got one there. Over here and back in here. So we got a lot of those. We got to get all those out and loose. And we also have to get this computer loose, and I can get this without removing the harness there. So I just got to break this here loose, and then I'll do, I got that bolt and I got this one right here. I just have to push down on this wire right here to get to that one. Okay, with that ground loose, it also holds the bracket. We got that one, and this will pull out of here. We've got, these are snapped in. Just give them just 1 second. Okay, so if you have some needle nose, just squeeze those so you don't break them, and they'll usually push right through. There's one. And there's that one. We should have enough slack. If not, I'll take. That's good for now. We've got another connector right here. and it just came loose. That's just for the auxiliary pump there. Okay, so we just laid that computer back out of the way. Now we're going to work on getting our 10 millimeters out. So we got all these to get. It's really not that difficult. I think while we're at it, this one here, you just take a screwdriver and push these clips. You lift up. See the tab right there? You lift up right there and just push that off. Same way screwdriver works. And there's those. And just put those aside so you don't lose those. They just clip that auxiliary pump into place, and see now it can just drop down. Okay, so now with this extension, we'll just go through and get all of these 10 millimeters. Like I said, they're just all through here, and some of them can be pretty snug. And also, there is one right here that you'll need to get as well that holds the front of this. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just going to get all of these 10 millimeters here. No big deal. We'll just lift this thing out of here. Okay, so we got all those loose, and those two down there actually don't need to come loose that I was saying. So you can leave those. And this is ready to lift out and up. And we've got, it's got a couple little clips, plastic clips here for that hose for the auxiliary pump. I forgot to disconnect that. So now this is completely out of our way, and we've actually got some room now that I can show you how we're going to get back here to this right here. Let's see, this is our harness right here. Now you want to go ahead, and this has got this little hinged gray connector. All you do is push, and this is probably really stuck because it's been on here, but it's on a hinge, and it should be able to push up just like that. I said it's just a little bit stuck. Okay, there we go. So that's what you do. You push that back, and then that'll come right off there. See, that disconnects. And then we've got a little clip right there, but we should be able to just pull those through. Well, it broke on me, but it's a little bit brittle. That's alright, because we can, if the replacement doesn't have one, we can just put a zip tie on it there. But we've got, that's the connector. Now we're going to have to get to the O2 sensor. I'm going to have to reposition here to show you. Okay, I'm going to walk you through how I got to this thing. Now you'll notice now that I have it up on ramps. Well, what had happened is I dropped my sockets and extensions several times and had to go under there and fish it out from under the frame. So I guess I would probably recommend going ahead and putting yours up on ramps. So what I did was I come to the back here and I followed the sensor down. I followed the cord, and I followed it all the way to the back there, and I had to feel for it. I found the sensor, and then I took, it's pretty much impossible to show you anything. You can see where I'm located there, right there. Okay, and you have to use a swivel because of the angle. If not, you're just going to be, your extension is going to go right back into the firewall. So you can see that right there. You have to get back there with a swivel, and I'm using the long, just the regular, the O2 sensor socket, and I've got a 3/8 swivel, and I'm using my 3/8, and I kind of basically, I got the socket on first, then I put the swivel, and then I started stacking my extensions one at a time. It's very difficult to get your hands in here to do this stuff, and that's why I was putting them on one at a time. I dropped them several times, and I stacked them up until I got up here, and then I went ahead and put my 1/2-inch drive with adapter. I just was not having any luck with my 1/2-inch extension, so I got up here with my 3/8 extensions, and I put the 1/2-inch adapter, and I used my 1/2-inch ratchet. And because it's got a swivel on it, it's more difficult because it's not as solid as it would be, so you have to kind of hold your extensions in place, and I used a cheater pipe here to break it loose. But I've got it broken loose, and now I'm just working it out of here, and I'll probably even have to fish the cord when I get this completely loose. I could probably switch over to my 3/8 ratchet at this point and make it a little quicker, but I just will say that this thing is very difficult to get to. You're going to have a lot of patience, and it's very snug. I would say spray some spray lubricant if you can see what you're doing back there, but as you can tell, it's not very easy to even see anything because of where it's located. But if you come back here right about where this piping is, you see that T right there. That's where you're going to go down. So that's your AC. So if you go down about right in there with your extensions, but you will have to have a swivel on there, like I said. And I'm going to go ahead and get this loose, and then what we'll do is we'll start the other one by hand, and then we'll have to do the same thing. I'll get the socket on there first, and then I will start to tighten it up. But I will tighten it as much as possible by hand before I even think about getting this on here. And then we just got to get our wire to connect back up here and clip it into place. So we're pretty much home free. Once you get this broken loose, you're pretty much home free. Okay, I actually had to go underneath and fish that sensor out because it fell down in there after I pulled my sockets out. Now this replacement has those little tabs that broke that I was showing you, so it's no problem. It's like made right on there. It has the exact connector, so everything is identical. It'll just plug right in, and it's already got some anti-seize on this as well. So what I'm going to do now, we'll just take this off, and we'll go ahead and work on threading that back down. You can definitely tell that this one's fairly old, and who knows if it's ever been changed at all. So we're going to go ahead and get this threaded back in there by hand, and then I'll do like I told you earlier. We'll just stack the socket on there and just work it on there one at a time, and just you kind of have to go by feel, like I said, because it's real difficult. You're not going to be able to see anything. I can kind of show you about where you're going. You can see right, if you come right through here on this side, this intake and stuff, and you go right back down here at the top of that exhaust manifold, that is your bank 1 and your upstream. So right in there is where you have to go, and we have to get that started by hand. Like I said, you got all these wires and everything and hoses, and it makes it difficult to get in there and do anything. So you just have to kind of go by feel as you're putting this in there. You kind of have to go by feel a lot. So it can be done, but it's just difficult. So be prepared and try to have a lot of patience on this. So I'm going to get this started by hand, thread it as much as I can, and then I'll work on getting my socket back on. Okay, so I've threaded as much by hand. You'll notice that I've got the plug-in pointed straight up. It's also going to keep it from twisting. And now I'm getting ready to go ahead and I'm going to feed this socket back in there and over that. No easy way of doing it. You just got to fill down in there and get it on there. As far as torque goes, I'm not worrying about torquing this. I'm just going to snug it down good. When I feel like it seats on the crush washer and it's snugged up, that's good enough for me. Okay, I just wanted to point something out here. I know these weren't quite deep enough to get to where I needed to go on with that heat shield on there, but with this out here, I realized why I was having so much trouble getting this to go on here. As it turns out, there's like, this thing is pretty wide right here, so there's only like one spot right here where it starts this little, where it has this flex line that you can actually slide this thing on good and still have the slack needed to push it down on there. So if you go right at the end of that right there, it'll give you just enough slack where you can push it, and that'll push back up in there enough to get it where you can snug it up. But like, you have to have it just a certain way, and I was wondering why I was having so much trouble, and that was why. But these other ones don't appear to be quite long enough. The half-inch one's a little bit longer than this one, but I don't think that it would work any better. So this is the best bet for loosening it and tightening it up. Is just the way this is made here. It's just slightly wider than this slot. So this is not my tool, so it might even be better to widen this out just a little bit, just for this particular sensor. It would probably make that a little bit easier. Okay, so I've just finished snugging this thing up, and I'm using my half-inch, and I actually corrected the other socket actually worked better, the half-inch one, because it's long enough to reach it, and I was able to get it snugged up just fine. It actually goes over the wire better, and so I'm just working on getting my socket back up out of here. I'll show you what I used here. Okay, so this is the one that I used. This is the half-inch, and you can tell it's got a much wider slot, and that's what made it easier. So hands down, this was the way easier one to use. And this is my setup. You can see I've got about a foot or so, a little over a foot of extension. So the first thing you do is fill down in there, set that over your O2, and then this here will go in there anyway, pretty much, and allow you to tighten this. So that will just slip on there. So I slipped this on first, and then I slipped on my swivel, my half-inch swivel, and then I slipped this down into place, and then I slipped this one on. And it's easier to do it piece by piece because there's just no room in there. And then I got up there and finished tightening it up. But this one here is way easier to use, and you can see how wide this thing is. Well, this one is able to go on there. Of course, like I said, there's a heat shield, but this one's able to go on there much easier, and it's got just enough length to get down on to that O2 sensor just like that, and you see no problems. It's not kinking the wire or anything. So that is the easier one to use, so definitely do that. It's just not easy to get your arms and hands down there. You have to kind of wiggle down in there, and if you got really big arms and hands, you're going to have even more trouble. So anyway, we've got our O2 tightened up, and just to show you, there it is in place. We snugged it down. And now we just need to get our connector back up here. And there's our connector. It's going to push right back on to this bracket right here. It's got the little locking plastic pieces. And just push it right onto there. And we'll just get this. So this pulls back. We slide it on down into place and then latch it completely till it locks. And if you don't get it latched, then you'll get a code. You'll know it. You'll get a code immediately. Okay, so that's the hard part. We're done with that. Now we just got the process of putting this cowl and this windshield wiper assembly back into place. It's not really a big deal at all. Just a few little bolts to remove, but it's not really that difficult, and it's going to be virtually impossible to do without it out of the way. It's just you can't even see what you're doing with that up there. So I guess the next thing we want to do is we'll just get our cowl here, and we will carefully set it back up into place. Just like that, and then we're going to go ahead and get all of our 10 millimeters we took out. Remember here, we got the ones up here, and we've got a whole slew of them over here in our bucket. And then this, of course, this computer just slips right back into here. And remember, don't forget your ground here goes with that bracket right there. So I'm just going to get those bolts back in, and then I'll continue on. Okay, so we got these two little clips here that we just slide. We get our auxiliary pump. Got those little nubs, and we just slide that right back up into place, and we will slide those clips right into those grooves there. Okay, and there those are. So we got our windshield wiper motor. We got these 3 bolts, and we just got to get those put back, and this thing will indeed line itself up once you get it into place and get it bolted down. We just gotta slip it back. Just like so, and then we'll just get our bolts in there and we'll snug these down. Okay, and there that is tight, and it doesn't have to be just terrible tight. It's got little rubber grommets that go on it. We're just going to get our wire back up in here, and this thing just fits itself back around this and seals off, keeps the dust and stuff out. And then we just get this back up here, snap that into place. Okay, so with this plastic piece, I just slide it back up under my little clips there, kind of bend it in the middle and slide it back up under those. And then I've got like maybe one more over there that to contend with, but usually I'm able to just do this and get it into place. I'll get that clip up there, and I'll get it back under this side. So some of mine are missing. And then these little snaps here actually are supposed to go in to the metal underneath, but these are all broken, so they're not really holding at all. This is this weather stripping, but that's good enough. We're going to go ahead and get our windshield wipers back on. So they got splines. I've marked them to which side goes where, and I got a mark down there as to the location so I can move this thing as needed. Okay, so now we're just going to snug these 14 millimeter nuts back down. That's good enough. They're not going anywhere. We got these little caps. Snap those back on. Okay. We got to reconnect this to this auxiliary pump here. And we'll snap these little pieces back into here where they go. Okay, so now I've just got my negative cable back on. We're going to go ahead and snug that up. Okay, so now I'm just going to go erase these codes out here, and we're just going to see what happens and see if, make sure we don't get any codes back, and then we'll crank this thing up. Okay, so I've just got it cranked up and running here. The disconnecting the negative actually cleared out the code, so I didn't even have to delete it. We're going to drive it and just see if this gas mileage improves. The only other thing that you could be looking at maybe like some injectors or something, but they say that the O2 sensors make a big difference, so I'm curious to see how this goes. So as said, I hope the video's been helpful. That's going to conclude this video. If you found it helpful, give it a like, and as always, I invite you to subscribe, and thank you for watching.